It's a high chaos ball, a wobbler. Oh, Reynolds, favoured by the bounce. He's going to turn it round the body, and he's got enough on it.
Hi everybody, welcome to Before the Bounce. We have plenty to talk about on the show. There is lots happening in footy, from good to bad. Is Goody all of a sudden better, or is he bad? How's he resurrected the demons? Quick turnaround, is Hub Life taken out of the players? There's a couple of flat spots. We saw Port Adelaide, of course, go down to Geelong, although Geelong are playing pretty good at the moment. The Crows, Matty Nix, is he the Brett Bolton? Is it going to be the same for him as it was for Bolts? Hopefully not. Ben Brown, is he trade bait? And North Melbourne need to get rid of him. There's a stat inside 50. He's going to have a chat with the great man in a moment, find out whether that's just the paper that should be used to flush down the dunny or not. Misleading stat, I reckon, is the Essendon transition coach. Is it working or not? And the big one for the man next to me in a moment, I'll introduce, should the Magpies be in the SANFL next year? Are we really missing the Magpies? We need to find out. Of course, he was a star in the AFL, he was a star in the SANFL. He is a McGarry medalist. I talk about the one and only Greg Anderson. Ando, how are you?
Welcome back. I missed you last week.
Sorry, mate. Yeah, I went off. What about the bloke that came in off the interchange? Any good?
The B team. Wasn't interchange, the B team. We had to go to the reserves to get old Rocky Butterworth. But
he hoed into you a fair bit.
He smashed me about my first 18 football with St Michael's. Apparently, rumour out there with his knowledge was I was a hog and never shared the ball. And
were you?
All true. I didn't want to let it out. So it was quite incredible how many texts and emails I got saying that finally someone's told the truth.
Rocky was on the money. He was all right. Hey, before we get going, we should say Tex Forward, of course, plays his 200th game this weekend.
What a great bloke.
13 years with the same club. Yeah. The club he always wanted to play to. You don't see it so much now. The draft doesn't really allow it. And he talked about it. You know, I'm sure there'll be a lot said this week about him, but obviously 2017, getting into the grand final as a captain. I remember having a conversation with Phil Walsh when he was undecided, just taking the job, who he should make as captain, and he thought Tex had something really unique and something special. And I think had Phil survived and was able to get through and work with Tex, I think we would have even seen more. And there was a time that he was selected as the best captain by all the other teams as the best captain. So he's had a pretty illustrious career.
Yeah. Oh, he's been a fantastic player. I think the club probably let him down a little bit in the way of he's just carried the club on, the
last 18 months.
And I reckon that's really affected his game.
Couldn't agree with you more. I think he's toughing it out at the moment. He's playing on a wobbly noon, mate. And I'll be interested to see whether he goes. He's got another year on his contract. Yeah. Right now, though, again, we've talked about this before, and I don't think that Nixie or anyone can get this 200th game enough emotion from to get over Geelong on the weekend.
No. They were awesome. They were absolutely awesome against the Power. Geelong, it was like another competition, those guys. They I don't think Port knew what happened. I reckon they would have walked off the ground and said, what the hell happened then?
Well, I reckon, and let's talk about it, the Hub Life. I reckon there's a flat spot at some stage, and I went through some notes the other day I was looking at when we were coaching, playing multiple games in a row, that you come out of the multiple games and the next game is really flat. Now, you've played. We're used to, athletes love momentum, they love continuity, they like things to be the same. Suddenly I've played 3 or 4 games in a short space of time, and then I've got 8 days off. And it's kind of, they get a bit lost. We're creatures of habit. Suddenly that's broken. And
we saw that with Port Adelaide. We got so many different personalities as well. Some handle it really well and some don't. And I reckon that was the mix of Port Adelaide last week. If you look at some of the performances, some were really down. I reckon they were tired. Didn't handle that many games in that block. And others, a bit more experience, seemed to be able to handle that pressure. But as a collective group, they really struggled.
Yeah, look, I had a heap of phone calls from different players from different clubs saying they really struggled in the first quarter or the first half to get going, and then they got going. And we talked about the reasons why and how to get over it, but it's across the board. All clubs are struggling with it at the moment. So I think it's a difficult one for them. But I want to ask you about this misleading stat, inside 50s. Now, you know my feeling, some stats are good value, some are no value at all. This one here, I'll just go over these 2 games on the weekend. St Kilda, 37 inside 50s. Essendon, 43 inside 50s. St Kilda, 35-point winners. GWS, Sydney went inside 32 times. GWS, whether you can believe this or not, inside 50, 52 times, they lost to Sydney by 41. So with the inside, now I want to, before I get you a chance to answer this, the stats originally, so we know what stats were originally designed for, they were designed for the media because they didn't know how to report on the game. So they gave them stats. If you go back 30 years, it was leading goal kickers and best on ground. Then they thought we need to give them a bit more information, so we started to make up some stats. Now we've got stats coming from everywhere.
I reckon that's because of cricket.
Hard ball gets, mate, inside, outside. The inside 50 stat is misleading.
It's very misleading because of the fact that there's so many players back there, the players then can't get it out, and then it goes back in. So it might be just one kick, and I say it all the time. There's stacks on the mill. The umpire throws it back up. They sort of they kick it out. There's a line of players. They kick it back in. Stacks on the mill. So there's a there can be a circumstance where the ball is only travelling probably 40 or 50 metres and hasn't gone out of that arc.
Yep.
And that's where it's really misleading. When you've got 30 players in a team's forward line, where do they go to get it out? They can't go anywhere. And the ones that are sitting back there are the attacking players.
Yep.
So they shove it back straight in.
Yep.
And of course, it's all the numbers are then balanced towards the defenders, so they get it, they kick it, and it's just really aerial ping pong. I've never, this year has really opened my eyes at when you talk about the old saying aerial ping pong. We're getting a lot of it at the moment, a lot of it.
So you've coached, but I reckon the stat, and again, I don't want to see any more stats, but if there was one sitting in the coach's box that I would ask for is, where are we getting our inside 50s? What angle are we coming from for our inside 50s? As opposed to most of them now, you're talking about, they're flooding, so they're forcing them to the boundary line outside the wing. So it's a difficult angle. So if I can go inside 50 20 times and I'm pretty much straight in front, as opposed to 50 times when I'm all angles and none in front, I reckon that would be the stat that would show up at the teams that are starting to win.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you about Essendon, mate, your former club. The transition from Worsfold to Benny Rutten as coach, is it working or not working? Now, there seems to be a little bit of a blame game, I reckon, with some of the media at the moment saying it's not working. I would suggest, and I don't know, that Worsfold and Benny Rutten are getting on just fine.
I think
the players are handling it just fine, but because they're losing, they're looking for a bit of, it doesn't really work. So I'll just take you back a bit. Don Ferner, who was coaching the Canberra Raiders in the Rugby League, was also coach of Australia. Got a young fella called Wayne Bennett in. The same situation that we're now seeing with Rutten and Worsfold. Very similar dynamic. I reckon it worked out okay for Wayne Bennett. He's a legend of the game.
Yes.
The one that failed a little bit, which most people I think are trying to draw a comparison between, is the Buckley Malthouse one. But that was largely because Malthouse wanted to go on. He agreed not to, and then all of a sudden he changed the direction.
That's where he wanted to go.
Yeah, exactly right. So had they stayed with the plan in shape, it would have been all right. I spent some time with David Parker when I was coaching, and at that stage he'd taken a step to let Wayne Britton coach, and it worked perfectly. Parker took most of the media stuff and let Wayne coaching on the footy, and it worked terrific.
Players loved him, absolutely loved him.
Where it fell down was when Parker stepped away, funny enough. So it does work. I think be patient. And Essendon are going to be okay with that one.
Oh, look, I agree. I think you just be patient. I think the half a game out of the eighth. What's really hurt them is injuries. And you look at injuries today. Some of these players who come into the side haven't got the luxury of playing reserves. It could be their first game in 10 weeks.
Yep.
And at the moment they have got one of the longest injury lists going around. So that's where it's really buckling Essendon.
Just quickly, Danaher, where will he go? They should have got rid of him last year because they would have got something for him. They don't know that he's going to be injured, but now he's a free agent.
It cost him a lot of money, that did.
It certainly has.
Cost him a lot of money. He hasn't played, he hasn't basically put his boots on.
Exactly right.
And it's cost him huge money.
So where's he go?
Oh, well, I thought, Sydney obviously putting their hands up for him. I think, probably Sydney or a Gold Coast. I mean, he's certainly not the trade bait he was, prior to the season, But wow, I mean, he's got every penny. He hasn't.
I reckon he's a heck of a player. I reckon if he can get to a program.
You can also actually go to Matty Crouch as well. I think the media really worked that one as well, and I reckon that didn't fit well for the Adelaide family, Adelaide Football Club family. And we're sort of seeing that a bit as well. I mean,
are we going to see it with Dixon then? So there's a bit of talk about Charlie Dixon hasn't signed. Collingwood might be interested in him.
I sense that Charlie, you don't want to be there. Move him on.
I think Charlie's happy where he is, and I think he'll stay. I think he's a loyal cat, and he's playing some great footy. So I don't think he'll move.
What the problem is,
but Danaher wanted to go, and they didn't let him go. It just hasn't worked out.
That's the key. With someone like a Lever, I think he was perhaps saying, well, my contract's up. I wouldn't mind this.
Yep.
And then the Crows says, no, this is what we're going to give you. Then Melbourne and other clubs are saying, well, we want to get this lad, really want the best and fairest. McGovern's the same, Cameron's probably the same. So it's why those players left when there didn't seem to be any, during the year, any reason for them to even want to contemplate leaving. Where Danaher and Matt Crouch, they wanted to leave before the season started. They wanted to leave. Yep. Let them go. And I think that's proven.
I'm a bit with you.
Yeah.
Simon Goodwin, all of a sudden, Goody's on the back of 3 wins.
I think it's great for him, actually.
Well, I'm happy for Goody, and they sit nicely in 8th spot at the moment. But 3 weeks ago, you and I sat here and talked about the president firing a shot at them, which I thought was really inappropriate. Now I can see that the guy that's fired the shot sitting there on the one.
He's sitting there. He's getting the pats on the back.
He
How clever
is
am I?
absolutely delusional. If he thinks that that's had any impact on the group at all.
He'd have to be thinking that.
No,
he's had some
I
impact.
guarantee you he's thinking.
There's no question
All right,
at all.
am I being strong then in saying he's delusional, thinking that that's made any impact at all?
Look,
It's made no. It's made
There's
no,
zero. I think Melbourne got some important players back.
Yeah.
They've got a bit of a kick,
There
kick
it
on
is.
the backside by
By Goody and some
your
others.
opponents.
Yep.
An opposition team, and you got they weren't that bad the week before. You know what I mean? And they just come out and they play some good footy.
I agree.
They've won a couple of games.
Fair enough that he had to say it. Maybe I'm a bit harsh on the president. He didn't need to say it.
Didn't need to say it.
It's had no impact on where they are at the moment. I want to ask you about the Magpies in the SANFL. I've bumped into quite a few people in the last couple of weeks, and they're saying to me, you know what, we don't miss the Magpies in the SANFL. In fact, the 8-team competition's really good. Next year we'd like to see it stay at 8 and play each other 3 times.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean,
Do you need the Magpies in the SANFL?
Look, I bumped into the Gowan brothers that said, we want the Magpies back in because we want to beat the Magpies we want Centrals to beat the Magpies in their next grand final win. So yes, they do. You're obviously talking to supporters from other clubs, which is fine. But then you go and speak to all the people that wear the Magpie hat. Let's get them back in. There's a lot of history there.
Yes.
Club players still want to beat the Magpies in the ground. Now I want you to have a think about this one. Who does Glenelg in 2019 wish they won or they beat in the grand final to be the premiers?
Yeah, no question.
They've had the greatest win in the club's history because they beat the Magpies, and that's a big part of it.
I reckon, I see where you're coming from, and the tradition of beating the Magpies is still powerful. Beating them at Alberton is still powerful.
Yeah.
However, the team that they're playing against now is really the players that the Magpies are filled up by, the power players that are getting ready to try and get into the AFL. So the focus of the Magpies now isn't so much on the SANFL. They still want to win it. I'm not saying they don't want to win it.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But the players are playing not to win the premiership in the SANFL. They're playing to get a job in the AFL and prepare themselves for that.
It's interesting you say that because I bumped into Laddams when he played for the Magpies last year. Played a fantastic game against Centrals. He was brilliant. Had a chat with his mum and dad, and they just said, "We love this club. We've come over from North Adelaide. And we just can't believe we're playing. His goal is to play in the AFL. And he's not far from it. After the game, after the presentation, chatting with his mum and dad, and they said, "We love this club. We love it. We just."
But they're a part of the club. But I'm talking about the people on the players. I'm talking about the people on the outside. So the other 8 clubs. Do the Magpies draw a bigger crowd? I don't think they do. I think they did years ago.
They do. They would never got 45,000 at a
no. Sorry, I'm talking about during the season.
Yeah, they get a big crowd.
During the season, well, all their fans are going to watch the power play now.
But yeah.
So has the SANFL suffered for the Magpies not being in this year?
What I will say is I've seen 4 games in the SANFL this year, and it's the best football I've ever seen. Yeah. So
you can see there's an argument for both. I'm not arguing.
It's still a great competition with 8, and I understand that. But all
right, then do you have a fear that they may look at it and go, you know what, we actually don't need the Magpies? Whereas before, I think there was a huge apprehension that we did need them for all the reasons that you've said. They bring the crowd, everyone wants to beat them, all that stuff. Yeah. And you've got to remember, there's a lot of people that aren't in love with the Magpies.
Of course there's not.
And they're sitting on the board.
I feel like I'm at the moment.
They might be sitting on that board when that decision needs to be made, and they've gone, you know what, been waiting this for a long time. They're out. But if you let them in, though, then where do the Crows sit?
You know what my thought is? I'm glad you brought that up. I want to bring West Torrens Crows back into the competition, back at Thebarton Oval, get all the honour boards and get your Lindsay Heads up there and Bruce Lindsay and Stephen Stretcher's honour boards back up there.
So what do the Eagles become?
They go back to Woodville.
Not bad.
They go back to Woodville. Because you know what? I want that lad that's trying to make it into the Crows, his parents to go back to a club and be embraced. They got a lot of supporters, West Torrens, and and they would sort of come back and get. They always had I reckon they had the second best Guernsey other than the Port Adelaide. They had a great Guernsey, the blue there. Yeah. They go back and there's a family there, and they call it the West Torrens Crows.
Okay, all right.
And there's your 10 teams.
I reckon it's hard to push. It's hard to push what you're saying, but I like the way you're thinking, mate. You're coming out in the left field. I like that. All right,
got a few thumbs up.
You got a few thumbs up, mate. All right. Again, Texie Walker, 200 games. Well done, Tex. Hope it's a ripping game for you, mate. You play well. We're off and running. Be back in a moment with Ando segment.
And welcome back to Before the Bounce, General, my segment. There's no show without Ando. I know. I thought that's the reason why you didn't want to come last week.
Giddy up. Well, I say we're Seinfeld here, no show without
Ando. So next to me is Art Vanderlei. You're an importer, exporter, is that right?
Latex.
Chips.
You love Seinfeld, don't you, mate?
I love it. It's
okay, no show without Ando. A show about nothing.
Now I wanted to ask you. You're on the board of the AFL on an AFL club,
right?
And you're held in high regard, by the president.
Yep.
Your club's finished 8th the last 2 seasons, 10th the year before. He wants your recommendation for the next senior coach who can lead the club deep in the finals. Who would your choice be and why?
Who would my choice be to be the coach? Oh, Chris Fagan, Damien Hardwick.
Okay.
Bang, straight after those two. That's where I'd go straight away.
Straight away?
Yep.
Chris, is that good?
Yep, no question. I think if you look at Fags and what he's done with Brisbane, the 2 years they're down the bottom. Well, when he takes them, they're a basket case.
Yep.
The next year he straightens up the ship, and yes, it doesn't equate to wins and losses. Then the next year in, they still have nearly the same number of losses, but the margins are much less.
Yeah. Then
the players start to realise that the style of coach he is. Then he starts to bring in some players, and then all of a sudden they go from that to second on the ladder in the next year, the third year. This year they're sitting nicely second on the ladder again. That is a massive turnaround with the restrictions that the AFL places on you. Damien Hardwick went to Richmond, and there wasn't a lot of love happening at Richmond. Nearly lost his job through that time.
Yep, and it's interesting because they were
they were just about ready to
tipping out of the 8,
which probably shows that sometimes we blame the coach when we shouldn't. But I think they're the leading 2 coaches right now. I know a lot of people say Alistair Clarkson's record's impeccable, but I think he's struggling a little bit at the moment, Clarko, for whatever reason.
There's got to be a time. There's got to be a time where let's look at the coaching staff and the coach himself. We've been sitting 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th for a bit too long now.
Yep.
And we're a bit stale.
I've got to say this about any coach that's currently coaching in the AFL. He's a good coach. He's a good coach, and they're highly intelligent.
Yep.
It's more about what they've got around them and the playing personnel that they've got that determines their success. Lee Matthews had a great comment. He was once asked, was you a better coach at Collingwood or a better coach at Brisbane? Of course, where he won a premiership at Collingwood, 3 with Brisbane. He said, what I found across the journey is I was a very good coach when we had talent. I wasn't a very good coach when we didn't, and I'm not a miracle worker. I reckon he's on the money. Yeah. So I reckon
because your job's sort of safe, isn't it? You get that 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th.
Yep.
I think the job's safe.
Yep.
But the question is, should you be safe?
Again, it depends where you're coming from. I think if you took a team that had won the premiership last year, and then suddenly you're out of the 8, and then the next year you're out of the 8, there's probably some questions asked, but that could happen too. If you mate, 3 or 4 injuries to key players, and everything changes. The big talk right now with all the coaches, doesn't matter which one you talk to, be it an assistant coach, be it the head coach, they're all talking about we need to dominate the midfield, we need to dominate stoppages. If we can do that, we're in with the chance. So I think you'll suddenly see a massive drive to try and recruit those good midfield players and the good players at stoppages. They're the key players right now. And you can see the defence can hold up, but not if it's under siege. If it comes out of stoppage quickly, comes out of the midfield quickly, there's nothing they can do about it. So that's the stat that matters. Or you've got to have a bloke that can, it's no coincidence with Fags that he recruits Luke Hodge. And at the time, there was a strong argument not to get Hodgie from people there. And he had to fight to get him there, and everyone said, master stroke. Then they get Birchall in this year, and they're all going, geez, master stroke. Now, those 2 blokes went there because of Fags. You have to have a coach that's going to attract players. And you've played. Do you want to play? Do you want to go and play for a team that's, I don't know, made the coach?
I just want to go to Kevin Sheedy. I couldn't believe it. And we're talking 1982, 83, and wow, Kevin Sheedy rang me and said, there was a few other clubs that showed a little bit of interest, but all I had was this Kevin Sheedy has rang me. So you're very right.
No disrespect at all to Matty Nixon. He's a young coach trying to find his way, and he's going to get there. He's a smart guy, and he's going to be okay. But if you get a phone call from Chris Fagan, you get a phone call from Matty Nix, which one are you going to? If you get a phone call from Damien Hardwick, you get a phone call from any coach that's down the bottom of the ladder, you're going, I'm on my way.
Yeah.
I'm on my way.
Because your senior career only lasts this long.
Yep.
And you got to go. You make the.
And
you make the best choice.
they've both got proven records of getting the players to play well.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing.
No, fantastically answered, and I'm proud of my little segment. Yeah. What are your thoughts?
No, it's a good segment. It's a good segment. I reckon there's a bit of sign.
We're going to leave it there because we're back after the break.
Yep, welcome back to Before the Bounce. Now we're going to have a chat about Game of the State, mate. So let's have a look at what's happening here in South Australia, not just at the AFL, not just in the SAFL. Let's have a look around. Southern Footy League, mate. Now, I've been saying it's been a great league.
Great league.
Up until
Fabulous.
2 weeks ago, all the games were close.
It's just divided, hasn't it? It's just divided. You look at Flaggies who are top 81 points over Anella. You look at Noarlunga, 48 points over Happy Valley. Morphe's 110 over my old team, Cove.
Might have to get you back.
And Christie's Beach, 99 points over Port Noarlunga. I mean, some of these teams like
Bit
Port
of a surprise. That
Noarlunga,
one's a
Happy
surprise.
Valley, Ranella, Cove, for the last 10 years, for a decade, they have been the powerhouse.
Yep.
Now, that's nearly all over 10 goals. So it has really just, they look like they got tired.
Yeah. I think that might be time. I need to replenish. I know Ranella have got a really young group of kids coming in, so they're hanging around the mark. And of course, here at Fusion Agencies, mate, look after the Southern Footy League.
Billy,
as well.
great man, Billy.
Billy is a great man. In fact, I spent some time with him middle of the week, and I tell you what, if you want to get some people at your club, and I know he's a Ranella man, but to tell you the story from starting a business to being successful, there is a lot of motivational stuff in there that you could put into your footy club. And Billy and his partner Rhonda and his wife, it's a great story.
Yeah.
It is one
4
of the
or 5 outlets, a couple of them in different states,
I
and the money he puts into local
down
community
south,
sports.
fantastic.
Absolutely, I'll take my hat off to him.
He's got a family of
guy.
51, mate. Great grandkids, 31 grandkids. So he's going along.
Well, the money he's got 52 and 53.
Well, mate, there is a fair bit hanging up. And in the River Murray League, all the teams are in with the finals chance bar, maybe bottom place Tailem Bend. The big winners over third place, my Palonga on the weekend.
It's a 5-goal win, 5-goal plus win. So that was, and as we mentioned, that bottom. So they just come in good at the end of the year, but I think it's going to be, they've held the run's too short from now. I think there's only a couple of games left, so they'll miss out. And Jervis will look like they'll stay probably top, for the next couple of weeks. So it's going to be pretty interesting. It's going to be a great little final series because that has been a very, very tight, tough competition.
Mate, do you reckon Jervis, being coached by West Adelaide star Tate Silverlock's had a bit to do with that? Do you reckon the players that come out of the SANFL and go to a club like Jervis or go to Tailem Bend or my Palonga make a big difference to the club? Or does it depend on
you'd expect to because he's played SANFL footy. There's a bit of a name there. It helps to recruit. A couple of guys, who might have been Westies when he was and looking for a club to go to, but all of a sudden they get dragged out there as well, and that strengthens up the club, and it definitely helps. There's no question.
It might be the
and he's a good lad too. Really good lad.
Mate, we need to go to a break. When we come back, we're coming to my segment, Ando, in a league of their own. Back in a moment. Yep, welcome back. We're into the final quarter. This is the segment that I love, Ando. I know you love it as well.
I love it as well, but because last week
didn't have anyone.
They didn't have anyone because it's no, the general's not here. So bad like Ando, you can't.
You can't, mate. You've got your own segment. You can't have mine. In the league of their own. So far, we've had a look at Johnny Platt. We've had a look at the great Russell Ebert as well. Thought I'd take it to Mark Raschudio. Now, Roo gets a little bit of flack, but let's just focus on him as the footballer, mate. How's this? 312 games for the Crows. He was an AFL rising star in his first season.
It was outstanding his first year. I'll never forget. I just joined the club.
It was unbelievable.
He was a young lad.
First All-Australian. He was All-Australian the following year in '94. He goes on and has a further 7 All-Australians, if you don't mind. Premiership player in '98. Crows best and fairest in '98. Captain from 2001 until he retired in 2007. Brownlow medal in 2003. Gee, that was a great moment. He's in the Australian Footy Hall of Fame. He was inducted 2011. South Australian Footy Hall of Fame 2012.
And it still keeps going.
Keeps going.
It still keeps going.
What have you got for me?
He reached his 300 game quicker than any other player in AFL history.
Yep, it's pretty impressive.
Longevity and and that's 11 days quicker than my old mate Craig Bradley.
Craig Bradley.
And he never got any injuries.
Bradley's never got
he's on
injured.
the, you know, so
How's it
Mark
that
Shooter was
Bradley's
just
never got
fantastic.
injured? Two different style of players.
Very much.
Rude in
Yeah.
and amongst it, and a
Well-
battering ram at times. Braddle's quick and on the outside.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
almost Michael Tuck like those two, weren't they?
Oh,
Braddles and Tuck.
I know. They were.
Yeah. Did they ever make contact?
Never.
Never
No,
tackle
never.
anyone?
I'll tell you about Braddles. I know we're talking about.
We'll come back to Rude. That's all right, Braddles. Yeah, yeah.
Remember, we played Sturt at Albion Oval when I just got smashed into the ground. People jumped on top of me. I'm just picking myself off the ground. They give me a free kick. I've got head high, pushing the back, knee in the jaw. I'm so sore. And then all of a sudden, Crazy goes, handle. I'm going, you can't be serious. I want one kick. So I've handled him and he's bounced the ball like this. I thought, oh, that's him. Beautiful.
So, Mark Rashudo, mate, has there been a better player for the Crows?
No, he's one of the best.
All right, I'll throw a couple of
Absolutely
names at you just
fantastic.
quickly. Andrew McLeod.
Wow, he's
2 Norm Smith medals, maybe.
yeah.
Doesn't have the Brownlow, so he's close.
He's very, very close.
All right,
I just think it is probably Mark's longevity
all right,
and,
we'll get
and
to
his
it.
impact. His impact at the contest.
Yep.
Where Andrew's, his speed and his agility was just.
I mean, Bungie will come into the list, mate, in a league of their own. No doubt. What about Tyson Edwards? Once again, he seemed to be the forgotten player.
Tyson Edwards is he's probably
321
just,
games. Mate.
Well, he's probably just on another page of a game changer.
Yep.
McLeod, Rashudo, Bradley, Tuck, they can change a game. Tyson Edwards' longevity, his reliability is in the top 6 of my list. But when a player can change again out of that, the ball up, from the centre clearances, those players know how to do it.
All
And
right.
they can change
The
a game.
last name I'll throw at you guys, because you've talked about guys that can change a game. Where's Sean Renz?
With Sean Wren, I would think is probably one of the. I really agree. He's probably one of the best ruckmen that's played the game. He has played the game, but of course he gives first look at the ball, and we, as you know, love the players that get the ball, have a bounce, kick the ball from the boundary line, take the nice big marks, smashes the packs. The ruckmans, don't really get the accolades they probably should.
No, I agree with you.
And that's probably in a nutshell.
Mark Rashudo was my man, mate, in a league of their own. He's up there now with Russell Ebert and, of course, the Rat, John Platten. Time for us to go. Sneaking out of town. Anything to close with, Ando? Anything?
I'm looking at your list, and you've got a really long list. It's about 5 pages of who's going to be.
Who's next?
I'm not in there.
You're not.
I'm not in the top 100.
Oh no,
That's all right.
No, you're in there. Well, you were, mate. I had you in the top 10, and then I saw the show last week, and after Rocky finished it, I had to cross your name off, mate.
I'm still getting over that.
You're a hog. I thought you were a great team there.
I worked hard at St Michael's.
Yeah, well, apparently you did, all for yourself. Hey, time for us to go. Hope you've enjoyed the show, everybody. Look forward to your company next week. Bye for now.